it could be an opportunity for appraisers to serve as consultants to this pool of buyers that may be, willing and ready to go about the transaction in a different way.
Originating from deep inside the Rocky Mountains, transported through the power of the internet, and arriving inside your tiny earbuds. It's the Appraiser Coach Podcast, helping appraisers increase their efficiency, quality, and make more money. Here's the guy who makes it his life's mission to create value for real estate appraisers nationwide. Your host and the Appraiser Coach, Dustin Harris.
All right, folks, welcome to the program. Dustin Harris hanging out once again with you in the podcast chair. Got a guest hanging in on the wings, as you can see on the screen if you're on YouTube. Can't wait to welcome him in. First, want to remind you that we're sponsored by a couple of great programs, great companies out there, I should say. Of course, WorkingRE being one of them. That's where I go to get my news and information about the appraisal industry. You should be as well. WorkingRE.com is where you find out more. Again, that's WorkingRE.com. And a la mode. A la mode, of course, is my choice for my report writing software. They are the best out there, folks. Check them out. alamode.com or 800 Alamode. Want to welcome back to the program my good friend, Mr. Isaac Peck. He, of course, is the publisher of WorkingRE Magazine. He's the president of OREP. As you can see his OREP hoodie there. Of course, they're the leading provider of E&O insurance for more than 10,000 real estate appraisers across the United States. And he received his master's degree in accounting at San Diego State University. Welcome back to the program, Mr. Peck.
Hey, Dustin, it's great to see you. Thanks for having me.
Always good to have you, my friend. Seriously, I love your articles. I love what you're doing there at WorkingRE Magazine, and you've got an article out there. I think people can read it now, right on the NAR Settlement and what it means for appraisers. Tell us a little bit about the article, where people can find it to begin with.
Yeah, so it's the cover story on our summer issue.
Got it.
Called NAR Settlement, what it means for appraisers. And so if you're an OREP insured or you're a subscriber to WorkingRE, then you definitely got the magazine, but we mail 50,000 copies of every issue. So the majority of appraisers hopefully have gotten the print magazine. But you can also go to workingre.com if you're looking for it. You can read it online.
Perfect.
And there's no doubt that the NAR settlement, right, is making big waves in terms of the real estate market, and real estate agents are talking about it a lot. But I think there's been less of a conversation about what it means for appraisers, and is anything going to change for appraisers?
Yeah, I love this because I think sometimes as appraisers, we sit back on the sidelines and eat our popcorn and see agents duking it out with regard to how it's going to affect them. Because, honestly, agents are freaking out because their lives are changing dramatically. It seems like a small thing, but it's a huge thing, right? So let's start basic, Isaac, if you don't mind. Let's just for listeners that may not know, I'd be shocked if they don't, but maybe it's been a few weeks, it's been a minute, they've forgotten a little bit about the details. Let's start with just a foundation. What is the NAR settlement in a nutshell?
Yeah, so NAR faced, class action lawsuits along with all the other large brokerages like Keller Williams and Compass and et cetera, claiming that they were engaging in kind of anti-competitive, antitrust type behavior. And they lost that case. They were facing billions in a judgment. So they decided to settle, and they settled for $418 million, I think, to be paid out over the next few years. And I guess the bigger issue is they've agreed to make some changes to their modus operandi, changes to their practices. And those big changes are, one, that real estate brokers are no longer allowed to offer compensation on the MLS. So typically with the MLS, the broker is saying, okay, we'll pay the buyer's broker 2.5% or
Mhm.
3%. We're no longer allowed to put those offers of compensation or that shared commission amount on the MLS. And then NAR is also requiring all of their buyers, brokers to enter into agreements with the buyers that they're going to serve that have very kind of specific way of defining how that buyer's broker is going to get compensated with the kind of how might that change things, right?
Mhm.
Well, if the seller stops offering that extra commission to the buyer's broker, then the buyer may have to pay their broker themselves. And so that no one really has a crystal ball. No one's sure how things might change or what's going to change. But the concern, or there's certainly a pretty decent probability that a certain percentage of the market is going to change how they purchase real estate, right? So
Mhm.
so maybe 10% of buyers are gonna find another way outside of using a buyer's broker to purchase a home. So whether that's hiring their own consultant, hiring their own attorney, um, uh, using maybe a real estate tech type solution, maybe we're going to see a huge increase in dual agency type brokerage solutions,
Mhm.
or maybe we're going to see kind of an increase in concessions, an increase in working those parts of the deal into purchase offers.
Right. Yeah, I love the way you're putting this because I mean, in the end, capitalism works because of self-interest, right? Because of the self-interest of the agents, those that I mean, this is their career, this is their job, and they're going to find a way to make their money. Although they may have to do some shifting. Their agents are in a very similar place right now that appraisers are as well, knowing that the landscape is changing. Not just with buying and selling, but the valuation industry in general. The modernization is changing, and appraisers are having to ask themselves, do I keep doing what I'm doing and hope for the best, or do I make a big change in my business model and do things differently? I think agents are dealing with that same issue right now, and I appreciate the options that you're bringing up, and maybe there's options out there that you haven't brought up that still will, be options out there. We don't know. Like you said, nobody has a crystal ball. Nobody knows for sure what's going to happen, but we do know that things are changing. Let's talk a little bit about appraisers for just a minute. I love the background, by the way, in this article that you give. I think, and I'm not just trying to butter you up here, Isaac, but your take on this was I've read so many different articles, listened to podcasts and different things, interviews about this settlement, and I can't tell you that there's been one that was easily understood as the article that you wrote. What is the NAR settlement, and how does it affect appraisers? So let's talk a little bit about that. How does it affect appraisers? So other than watching from the sidelines and saying, well, this is very interesting, does this have a direct effect on us appraisers?
I think that there's two main ways that appraisers should monitor and potentially prepare for. And the first is, to what extent is this going to change how real estate is transacted?
Okay.
And real estate brokers, obviously, some of them are very concerned that this is going to change very substantially. If the settlement is set to take effect in July, but if we don't see a big change in the fall, are we going to see a change over the next 3 to 5 years in terms of how the American public transacts real estate?
Right.
And if that is changed to a significant degree, and it's going to, if it changes, it's going to change by local market. So let's say in, San Diego, where I live, all the brokers hold the line, and sellers agree, all the sellers continue to agree to compensate to include 2.5% or 3% to the buyer's broker, then nothing will change in San Diego. Let's say in Dallas, Texas, a different type of thing starts to materialize, and 20% or 30% of sellers say, no, we're not going to include compensation for the buyer's broker. We're only going to pay, 3% for the listing broker.
Mm-hmm.
And the buyer broker they can figure that out by themselves. So let's say that 30% of the market, the sellers decide we're not going to include compensation for the buyer's broker. Now we've got a situation where in some cases, those buyers are going to compensate their own agents. In other cases, they're going to be submitting purchase offers that include concessions for that. I will agree to pay you $500K for the house, but I want 10 grand in concessions towards closing costs that I might be able to use to cover, loan costs or to pay my real estate agent, those kinds of things. And so that will change how the market is responding to commissions. And then appraisers will need to analyze that and determine what impact that has on the market and if adjustments are warranted because of concessions or because of the way that commissions were handled. And so there's, I feel like I could talk for another 5 minutes about that. But there's a larger conversation about when adjustments might be warranted in those situations, right? Do appraisers need to adjust for concessions in those scenarios? And might there ultimately be a need for adjustments for commissions in that scenario if the market is not handling it in a uniform way? Appraisers are not required to make adjustments for things that are basically universal in the market.
Sure.
And currently, the real estate agent commission and the way that is handled is kind of universal in the real estate market across the United States. And so if that changes in a substantial way where only 50% or 60% or less are handling commission compensation in a uniform way, then appraisers will likely need to start making some kind of adjustment for that and analyzing that in the market. And then the second thing that appraisers need to look at is, is this an opportunity for them to get private appraisal work to serve as real estate consultant to buyers that are looking for an alternative way to purchase property outside of the traditional brokerage model where the buyers are going to be faced with this choice where they're going to have to sign a buyer broker agreement that says if the seller isn't offering compensation, they're going to have to pay their buyer broker themselves. And so we expect some percentage of buyers to say, that I don't really want to do that. That's a little risky. Maybe I could buy the house myself, and hire an attorney and hire a real estate consultant to help me navigate things. And I could, maybe spend a few $1,000s purchasing a home for my family instead of entering into a buyer broker agreement and potentially paying them 10 or 15,000.
Right.
And so it could be an opportunity for appraisers to serve as consultants to this pool of buyers that may be, willing and ready to go about the transaction in a different way.
Yeah. I want to dive into that a little bit more when we get back from the break, Isaac, a little bit more about what appraisers can do to position themselves to take advantage of what I think is an opportunity. And any change brings opportunity. The article, of course, is called NAR Settlement, What It Means for Appraisers. It is the cover story of the summer edition of WorkingRE Magazine. Folks, if you're not getting WorkingRE Magazine, you should. It is free. You just got to sign up for it. Go to WorkingRE.com. Folks, this is where you will learn what's going on in your world. Now, some of us like to stay in our appraiser cave and put our head down and pretend like the world's not going on around us. But I think most of us care about our career and our industry and where things are going. We want to be in the know when it comes to what's going on in the profession. And there's no better way to do that but by WorkingRE Magazine. Folks, if you go to WorkingRE.com, wait a few seconds, they'll have a little pop-up come up on the screen, and you'll have an opportunity to sign up for their digital copy of the newsletter, free, of course. And then, of course, you can sign up for the written version as well, which comes out, I think, 4 times a year. WorkingRE.com is where you need to go, WorkingRE.com. Of course, we're sponsored today by Alamode. They have been a sponsor like WorkingRE from the very beginning. So shout out to Alamode. I'll be using Alamode in just a few minutes. When Isaac and I get done, I'm hopping in my little car and I'm driving to Pocatello, Idaho, and I'm doing an inspection down there, and I'm going to use the mobile app on a la mode. Why? Because it makes it so I don't have to enter the data in twice, folks. I can do the sketch, I can do the photos, I can do all of the data that I need on site. When I link back up to my report, it's all there. I check it over, make sure it looks good, and then we move directly to the comps and the adjustments. It's so easy to use. Folks, if you're with any other software, check them out by going to alamode.com or pick up the phone and call them at 800-ALAMODE. All right, folks, welcome back to the program. Of course, we have Isaac Peck, the editor, the publisher of WorkingRE Magazine. Welcome back, my friend.
Thanks again, Dustin, for having me.
We are talking, of course, about the cover story for the summer edition of WorkingRE Magazine, a big deal in the real estate world, the NAR settlement. But specifically, what does it mean for appraisers? Isaac, you started to talk a little bit about the consulting side of things. I did an episode on this podcast, episode number 957, specifically talking about what this might mean for appraisers and how they can position themselves. Let's talk a little bit about that. As you see, obviously, again, we don't have a crystal ball. We're not for sure, how things are going to change, but I think there's no doubt there's going to be a certain percentage of buyers that are going to wake up and say, why in the world would I pay an agent to help me buy a home when I have online data, when I have an attorney I can reach out to, and here's a new thing, right? What about a real estate consultant? Can an appraiser be a consultant in that position?
Right. I agree with you completely, right?
Yeah.
The certain percentage of buyers are going to, the term that I've heard being used is a la carte, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're going to seek out services in this transaction a la carte. So that they're probably going to need perhaps a real estate attorney, and then they might need a real estate consultant, right? Someone that can advise them on neighborhoods, advise them on the different factors in terms of what the market is doing, those kinds of things. Maybe give them a pre-purchase appraisal, right? Advise them on
Sure.
what to offer on a given property, those type of things, so they can make an informed decision.
Yeah, I love this. When I first started my appraisal company, I called it it was an appraisal company and a consulting company, and I wanted to focus on consulting because it's not something I think that most appraisers do. It's something we can do. It's very spelled out in USPAP. We understand the limitations and what we can and can't do, whether or not we can be an advocate, whether or not we can't. All of that is clearly written out both in USPAP and in state law. So of course, pay attention to those appraisers. But there's an opportunity here that I don't think most appraisers have taken advantage of in the past, but certainly this will bring a new opportunity. I want to talk a little bit about geographic competency, Isaac. In your mind, does this increase the opportunity where an appraiser would have the competence? In other words, I'm going to hire somebody in San Diego. If I'm looking to buy a house in San Diego, I'm coming from Idaho, right? It doesn't make a lot of sense to hire an appraiser in Idaho to tell me about that house in San Diego, right?
Right.
So you've got the competency side, you've got the positioning side, and I love the article spells out the opportunity there. Folks, if you've not read it, you need to go to the summer edition or digitally online, WorkingRE Magazine. Again, I'm going to give the name of the article. Write it down. It'll be easily found. NAR Settlement, what it means for appraisers. Lots of opportunity. Isaac, what did we not touch on that you think is important? This article goes into so much depth. I know we just scratched the surface here. I really highly encourage people to read it.
I think that we got a good general overview. I would just say again, that if we are expecting the NAR settlement to change the way that real estate is transacted, even if it's just 10 or 20 or 30%, then I think it's going to end up changing the way that appraisers research and analyze the market, and probably going to necessitate some type of adjustments for commissions and concessions that kind of result out of this. And concessions have been a big discussion item, especially among the GSEs and residential appraisers. The majority of appraisers aren't currently adjusting for concessions. And so if they see a seller concession of $10,000, a lot of appraisers are not making any kind of adjustment for that. And state boards and Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are not particularly happy about that.
Mm.
And so it'll be important for appraisers to monitor, how the NAR settlement changes how real estate is transacted in their local market over the next 12 months, 24 months. Are things really going to change over the next couple of years? And what does that mean for your practice? And how might you need to adjust how you're reporting that in your appraisal reports? I think are really important questions.
Yeah, I agree. I think in a world where appraisers are sometimes negative about the future and saying that things are changing and are we even going to be needed in the future? Appraisers, this is an awesome opportunity to take the bull by the horns and say, you know what, there's a major change happening in the way that we transact real estate, and both to be the expert locally to understand how those concessions work and to adjust accordingly. So value, that's one. Another takeaway, folks, could you position yourself, of course, to take advantage of this change and be that, if you will, a la carte opportunity to be a consultant to those that are looking to buy real estate. Isaac Peck, thank you, my friend. The article is NAR Settlement, What It Means for Appraisers. I appreciate you being on, my friend.
You've been listening to the Appraiser Coach podcast with Dustin Harris. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating and post a short review on iTunes. For more in-depth insider information on how you can make more money as a real estate appraiser, visit theappraisercoach.com and sign up for the All-Star team today. Thanks for joining us. And now, get out there and create some value.